You're watching ITG Clips.
This time of year, always a lot of storylines to look ahead to and to keep an eye on for spring ball. But I think especially signal caller when you're bringing in a brand new coaching staff, that always adds some extra intrigue, and I think with it brings some additional question marks as well too.
It certainly does. And the question is going to be starting with Nico, of course. I remember the bowl game. Nico spent some time with Coach Rod, obviously, and I told Nico during the game or even after the game, maybe in the hotel, we had a couple of conversations there about. And I said, Nico, live up to it, man. I already told him. I said, you're tougher than a $2 steak. You'll take hard coaching. You'll take it with a smile on your face. You're physically tough. You're mentally tough. And I believe it. Nico's the type of kid who's going to stand in front of the room and take whatever you throw his way, set a great example. And he has that factor that other kids respond to. So I'm eager to see how Nico, and of course we know Nico doesn't shy away from competition. So we're going to get into some of those kids as well. But when you look at what's populating that room, Nico's going to embrace those challenges, no doubt about it. Now, people have been curious, and this isn't a full breakdown or spring preview by any stretch. We'll do some of that later as practices start to play out. But how does Nico fit in Rich's system? Well, this is a system, Wes, that we'll spend a lot of time in the offseason breaking down what this system has in fact done. But it's a system that I threw for 500 yards multiple times in it. It's produced a bunch of 200-yard rushers. It can do a little bit of everything. So you can lean into what the strengths of your personnel might be. I think Nico can be, a lot of it's predicated on quick one-read looks, what Rich asks his quarterbacks and his modern version of his offense to do. And Nico is very decisive in that sense. Think of those RPOs you saw him fire in those times. I think of Arizona in the red zone. I think of the plays that he made against Cincinnati. Those are quick one-read looks, RPOs, quick decisions. So I think Nico could be a fit for this. And he's not just a willing runner, but an able runner. He's a physical kid. We've seen him knock people around. People slide off of him. He's a different kind of runner than what maybe Rich has had in the past. But I'm not so sure. When you look at the quarterback that he had at Jackson State a year ago who didn't arrive on campus until June, same type of thing. He was like a 4.8 guy.
Sure.
He wasn't going to run past a lot of people, but he was just willing, physical, put up some big numbers, was highly productive. So you start with that. What kind of fit will Nico be for what Rich wants to do? And I'm very intrigued by that. But when you look at the competition in the room, a lot of people are going to be talking about Jalen Henderson because of his skill set and his athleticism. Started at Fresno, played in the SEC at Texas A&M. I'm curious and intrigued to see what he brings to the table because he does have that twitch and that burst. And anybody that has that, obviously Rich has a track record of maximizing that and making the most out of it. So for a number of reasons, Jalen Henderson intrigues me. But the guy that I don't know if fans know what to expect from, Max Brown. Don't be deceived by what Max Brown did or didn't do at Charlotte. Charlotte was an atrocious football team a year ago. But more specifically, wow, were they bad on offense? And Max Brown, who previously was at the University of Florida, he made a start against the Seminoles, you remember, a couple of years ago. As things were falling apart for Florida down the stretch, they turned to him to try and get a boost or a shot in the arm to start in that rivalry game against the Seminoles. He's a player, but then when he transferred to Charlotte, he was just immersed in this horrible offensive ecosystem. So his numbers weren't real impressive. His tape wasn't real impressive. Don't be deceived by what did or didn't happen at Charlotte. I think his track record before and leading up to Florida, you might have a football player there, and there's going to be some others in the room as well. So let's see how this thing shakes out. Different skill sets, different types of kids, different types of guys. Who's going to respond? Who's going to really take that thing and run with it? And maybe something will be decided by spring. Maybe it won't. You never know. But and Rich has even said, look, I'd like to get 10 kids in that room because he wants to foster as much competition as possible. But once again, I double back to this. I don't care whether you have 3, 5, 10, or 15. Nico Marchiol is not going to shy away from that competition. And we'll find out if these other kids do as well. And, you got Scotty Fox coming as a freshman next year. You won't see him in the spring. It's more of a spring discussion. But so that's a great place to start. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm fired up to see what, in fact, Nico can do when he's plugged into this system that Owen and I are very familiar with, that I've seen just a wide array of different types of quarterbacks. So I don't think you can get much different than me and Pat White. And we both had a lot of success in the system. So that just speaks to the versatility of the system. So let's see how it goes. I'm fired up.
Well, Jed, I just want you to know when I think about the most successful quarterbacks in Rich Rodriguez's systems after Pat White, I quickly think of Jed Drenning. So I just want you to know
Okay.
that you come up on my list before any of these other guys, before Rasheed Marshall, before Denard Robinson, before Tate, before any of these names. I got you, baby. And you're listen. You and I are not reinventing the wheel here with starting here. I mean, but this is football at any level. When you're talking about an off season, when you're talking about spring practice, when you're talking about training camp, whatever the topic might be, if you don't have that nailed on, no doubt this guy is our starting quarterback. Quite often, that's where the intrigue begins. It doesn't matter if this is a high school football team, a college football team, or an NFL team. So, of course, I think that is at the forefront of everybody's mind. A thank you to our friends at Toothman Ford and our guy JR for being a presenting sponsor of ITG. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Shout out to everybody there at Team Toothman. Nico Marchiol is a Toothman guy. He's built Ford tough. I'm with you on that. I think if there was any notion in his mind of shying away from this new era and everything and all the competition that will come with that, we would have seen him put his name in the transfer portal a few months ago. Now, that obviously does not guarantee that he will be on the roster in the fall. Any of these guys that are still here, it's not a guarantee that they'll be on the roster in the fall, as there will be more portal windows between now and then, and there will be, make no mistake about it, moving and shaking. There will be more imports and exports before the summer, certainly, and before we get ready for the fall. But Jed, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Practice starts Tuesday.
Correct. That's a big part of the reason why they're starting early.
Yeah.
Is to get ahead of that April portal window.
April 5th. So, yeah, you got a nice run up to that window, that next window. So, yeah, there's going to be some moving and shaking. No about it. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say the final intriguing kind of thing of the quarterback conversation for me is, off of the just how much we've talked about Pat White in general and then him coming back to the program in an official coaching capacity. Nico Marchiol, Jalen Henderson, both lefties as well too, Jed. So maybe we'll continue the streak here. But yeah, like to me, that's where I think again, it doesn't matter if you fancy yourself a hardcore fan who really focuses on these type of things, or if you were just somebody more casual. You always want to kind of know what's going on with that quarterback position, because that is such a large part of your success, obviously.
There's no doubt about it. And I just want to see, there's two things they have to acclimate to. First of all, the system and the scheme, but second of all, the type of coaching. It's going to be a very rugged type of coaching, and it's not for everybody. But you know what? In talking to some of those kids who transferred up from Jack State, we'll talk about this here in a bit. But I had a conversation with Fred Perry. He was around the facility when I was in there, and talking to him, and he's like, "Look, I like to be coached hard. That's why I'm here." So that's not for everybody, but those that it appeals to, you can quickly find out or quickly see. It's readily apparent. And I know Nico. I don't know the others, and that's why I keep speaking to Nico. Nico's the type of kid that I can promise you that's going to appeal to him. He's not going to shy away from it. As to the others, I don't know. I haven't been around them. Can't speak to that. But so the type of coaching and how they acclimate to the schemes. There's a lot to look at here. New personnel all around them, new scheme, everything's new. Mm-hmm. That new car smell across the board. Every single part of this spring practice is going to be new. So, but great place to start the quarterback conversation.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to ITG Clips and In the Gun podcast for more WVU football content. Watch the whole podcast episode by clicking the link above or in the description.